Hello and welcome to my humble house of learning. Today we're talking about the Ottomans, who are one of the most flexible civs in Season 6 of Age of Empires 4. As such, the Ottomans can play 1 TC Feudal, 2 TC Feudal, semi-fast castle, fast Imperial, even fast castle and Dark Age aggression. They can all in Feudal, in Castle or in Imperial, because they scale incredibly well on the back of their military schools. These produce military units for free, which synergizes perfectly with their Imperial Council Vizier points. And these allow for very flexible choices and great buffs to their economy. Today we will focus on these two mechanics and on building the most efficient base to achieve the most flexible opening possible for the Ottomans. So here we are in game, and right from the start we have many ways of playing the Ottoman Dark Age. One possible opening we will not be looking at today is the Dark Age Rush, with an early military school and additional barracks, since it really only gives us one option. If you are interested in that, however, please let me know in the comments below. Here I will showcase the Dark Age opening that seems the most optimized and flexible to me. It is comparatively simple, although not the easiest to execute perfectly, and it is really fast. So we will start by sending 5 villagers to stone for a single trip, and 1 villager, the remaining one, goes on sheep. You obviously want to move the sheep closer to the TC, and then you send out your scout on a defensive pattern around the middle, and then towards your closer side all around, so that the scout comes back to your base at around 220. I will get to Y in due time. Now we rally our TC onto sheep, and these sheep are placed in a very specific way. This sheep is moved closest to where we want to build our first military school, and this sheep is moved closest to the straggler tree that is nearest to the stone. Now, as the stone villagers are returning, we shift them onto the closest straggler tree. And then we use our first villager to build a house right after he dropped off 10 food, and the second villager builds the military school right after they dropped off 10 food. Now, where do we place our military schools? That is a big question. And in my opinion, when building a base as the Ottomans, you want to prioritize efficiency and safety. Each of our military schools is worth almost 2 villagers in Dark Age, almost 2.5 villagers in Feudal Age, and up to almost 6 villagers in Imperial Age, with the Istanbul Observatory landmark, of course. And that is one of the main reasons why Ottomans scale so well into the late game. But military schools are also an investment. We had to get the 50 stone earlier, which delays our Feudal Age, so we need to really protect them. And that is why we want to build them as close to our TC as possible. And we need to place them also around our future blacksmith, which we will build in the Feudal Age, so that they pay off faster and scale better. So how do we do that most efficiently? Let's take a look. Here you can see our TC in black and the planned layout of our buildings around it. Military schools are labeled MS1 to MS4, military production is labeled M1 to M6, and placed around our blacksmith in green. Landmarks are colored in gold. This is the layout you should have in mind when starting the game. As you can see, our military schools are right next to our TC. Our Castle Age landmark is still close enough to be built in range of TC fire, and our twin minaret madras is placed such that the berries are as close to the TC as possible, given that we still want to be able to place farms all around it later on. We also have space for houses close to our wood line. Now, this is the perfect world scenario. Your spawns will not be perfect most of the time, so here are some tips to deal with less than perfect spawns. First, you want to look for open space, minimum 11 tiles to 13 tiles if possible, for your military production. Then try to avoid placing military production in front of your base, aim for the sides instead, because that is obviously safer. Place your twin minaret madras landmark with berries as close to the TC as possible. Leave space for houses near the woodline if possible, and remember that you can clear forest relatively quickly to gain space. By the way, you could fit more military buildings around your blacksmith in this way, but notice how military schools and farms are placed further away from the TC, and most of the time, once you can produce out of 6 military production buildings, you are already over 25 minutes in and have reached Imperial Age, or you can at least afford an additional blacksmith, so it's really not worth the risk, in my opinion. In the case of this example, my base layout will look something like this, because I want to preserve the already chopped straggler tree, which will cause me a few smaller problems later on though, as you will see. So, back to executing the plan. I am rallying to sheep from now on, and once the 5 villagers have delivered the 50 wood, 3 of them will go onto the nearest already slaughtered sheep, and the other 2 will build a gold mine down here, as you can see here. It's a good idea to control group these villagers so that it goes quicker and easier. Obviously, the villager that built the house and the villager that built the military school go back to sheep. You can also shift queue them to not forget. Notice that you may want to place this gold mine away from the TC if you need more space. In this case, that was not necessary, and I also have back gold, which is obviously always good. From here, things get a little easier. Now, we want to rally until we have 13 villagers on food. And remember to gather sheep. At this point, you can really take a look at your scout and see where the scout is moving and get all the sheep and not miss any. And then the scout should return at around 2:20. And this is exactly when the military school will have produced the first spearmen. Usually you want to use your scout now to guide the way for the spearmen, and obviously move the scout to the opponent's base. In this example, I will not use the military units that I produce at all, but the scout is still on their way to the opponent's base, of course, with a small detour, just to make sure that I haven't missed anything around my base, and also to make sure that I know where all the resources around my base are, in case I wanted to expand early, right? So again, typically the spearmen you could use in most matchups to harass gold or the opponent's base in some way. Now we are at 12 villagers on food. We don't queue anymore because right now at 250 you will be able to drop your landmark. As you can see again, in this case I place it a little further towards the outside because there's still the straggler tree that I've chopped, and I don't want to destroy that and waste time chopping another tree. I could have done that though, it would have been fine too, if I really wanted to have the optimal base layout. I need to make sure that I have enough food now for the next villager, which is why, whilst those 4 are moving already, I wait until 255 for these 5 villagers, the 5 villagers from the beginning that have chopped the tree and also were on stone, to go onto the wood, so that I can make another villager before I do that. Otherwise I will stop villager production, and I don't want to do that, of course. The next villager that comes out also still goes on food, so that I have 4 on food at 3 minutes. And now I will start rallying onto wood. And these villagers here will be shift queued onto the wood line as well. So from here I'm obviously going towards the opponent's base, scouting. And the first villager coming out towards the wood line will build a house. And then once these villagers have cleared this tree, they will move onto the wood line, and one of them will build the lumber camp that we now have exactly enough wood for. There we go. At this time our second spearman also comes out and can obviously also be used to harass the opponent's base. From here we rally until we have 9 villagers on wood. But there's still a bunch of stuff to do in the meantime, because we will need more stone now for our next military school. So right now we don't have enough food to actually sustain villager production if we wanted to go out with villagers to stone. So this is why we need to make sure that we wait until 420 exactly in order to gather enough food. As you can see, 50 food exactly, having forced a drop-off here with all these 4 villagers. That allows us to queue another additional villager and build a mining camp with these 4 villagers. So we basically just exchange the 4 villagers on food from these 4 that were on the sheep to these 4 that are on the landmark and will go onto the berries in a second as we age up to Feudal Age. So, we reach Feudal Age. Now the first thing we need to do at reaching Feudal Age, if we did it perfectly, it will work out that we have exactly enough time to switch to Sipahi training instead of Spearman training, right before the 3rd Spearman comes out. That's the first thing we do in Feudal Age. The next thing we do is we need to make sure that these villagers here actually move on to the berries instead of any other food source. Because obviously the good thing about the Twin Minaret Madrasa is that it actually boosts our food income by quite a significant margin, so we really want to make sure that there's 4 villagers on the berries at all times. The next villager coming out, we have 4 villagers on food. Those are the landmark villagers. Then we have 9 villagers on wood. We have 2 villagers still on gold, and 4 villagers that will be on stone very soon. Our military school is producing Sipahi. And now the next villager coming out is rallied here, which is kind of weird because it's not a resource, but we need to build our blacksmith next. But before this villager comes out, we should have finished scouting the opponent's base, or at least the relevant resources, and make a decision. The blacksmith we can build at any point, or always, basically, so we can take a little longer to scout the opponent's base, which is nice, because this blacksmith will be built no matter what. But once this blacksmith is halfway done, so let's say 450, we should really know what our plan is. Now, if we wanted to go to a Feudal All In playstyle, we would build a stable after this, then we would build our second military school, then an archery range, move the villager that has built all of this to the gold for 3 on gold, and then our stone villagers would gather another 100 stone and move to food at roughly 610. All the while we would get upgrades and make Sipahi plus archers, and rally to food, then to wood, for a villager split of 13, 14 and 3 at 8 minutes, and that is a build order you will have seen around. But what if you wanted to go Castle Age now? Well, in that case I would still recommend getting Wheelbarrow at 450 or 455 as soon as you have 150 gold. And I would also recommend still getting the blacksmith, as I've said before, because the blacksmith will increase your production speed on the military schools, of which you will have 2 very soon, and that is going to be worth roughly 1 villager. So skipping on that just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Now, I would also recommend, after this blacksmith, to just build a production building with this villager and not skip on production, because I'm doing a stable now, but you could also do a barracks. Let's say you're playing against a knights and you want to make a couple more spearmen. You could also use this 150 wood again to make an outpost or some walls, but use the wood somehow, you know, in some way. Then, after this wood has been used, you will have enough stone to make your second military school. And this is something you want to do for sure. Getting those military schools up increases your production so much, and is, as I've said, worth 5 villagers now, these 2 together. It's just incredibly good, and I don't think it is worth it to skip any of these buildings in order to get a slightly faster castle age time. Now, since we want to go castle relatively fast still, we build a house with 5 villagers from wood, and those 5 villagers will then go onto food, just when we drop the military school. And we also still rally onto food, and this is what I've talked about earlier, where sometimes these villagers will not prioritize the berries or, you know, the food around the Twin Minaret Madrasa, but rather, you know, other food sources. And you will always have to keep an eye on this and move those villagers back once you notice, which I will do soon-ish. Because sometimes it's difficult to move. Yeah, there we go, I moved them. And also at 610, you have gathered 100 additional stone for the next military school that you will be building once you reach castle age in this case. And then you want to move your villagers over to gold. So now we have 6 villagers on gold at 610. We have 4 villagers on wood and 13 on food, with 1 villager still building our production. This villager will now also add an additional production building and then move to gold, because I don't really need more gold to get my timing for the castle age, and so I might as well just get all the production buildings that I want in castle age anyway. And then this villager is going to go to gold as well, because I will obviously need a lot of gold in castle age. Now, you've just heard the vizier point coming in at roughly 640. And in case I did not gather a lot of sheep, I could have gone with the Anatolian Hills vizier point. But since I did get a lot of sheep, and I want to go fast castle, I chose the field work, the 2 imams, because that way I can obviously get relics as soon as I reach castle age. So now we rally on to food until we have 18 on food. We will have 7 on gold, and we still have enough on wood to add an additional lumber camp to increase the efficiency and also build houses. And so now, once the next villager comes out, we're at 18 on food now, and now we rally onto wood, because obviously we will need a lot of wood now for all the additional buildings that we need to build. And at 8:15, 8:20, we can drop our castle age landmark, and obviously we're still going by our plan here of how we want to lay out our production. So this is where the Mermaid Imperial Armory is, and as you can see, it's within range of the TC, so all of our villagers are still relatively safe. So from this point, we want to make sure that we get additional eco upgrades. Also, obviously, always remember to, change the military schools that you build. This will be important once you reach castle as well, because you will have to make a decision of which units you want to have. I'm now getting horticulture for all the sheep that I have, also expecting to go into berries eventually. I could also get the survival techniques for this deer pack here. And then I also obviously want to get double broad axe. So now, the moment we reach castle age, that we build up with 10 villagers, 5 of those villagers need to go on stone. The other 5 villagers build the next military school. And then, right after the military school, they will build a mosque, and then they will go on food. And these 5 villagers will just make 2 trips, so that we get 100 additional stone. And then these villagers will go on to gold as well. And that way we can build our 4th military school the moment we are able to, with our vizier point at pretty much 10 minutes. So you can see they go on food here. It doesn't really matter which food source, of course. And all the while we're still rallying onto wood until we have at least 10 on wood. And now, at 10 minutes, our vizier point comes in. We spend it on an additional military school, of course, and we should drop off enough stone to build that in just a second. There we go. I'm even over the stone that I needed, so I could have dropped off at 10 minutes. And now I can send 1 villager to build the 4th military school. Our Imperial Armory is producing a manga now. We start making knights, and now we can choose what we want to do, right? Do we want to go into Knight Archer? Do we want to go into Knight Crossbow, depending on what our opponent is building? Maybe we want to add Man-at-Arms. We're completely free on that. I have chosen to go crossbows from the military school. You could also choose to do Men-at-Arms. This military school is producing a Mechta, and then the next military school coming up will kind of leave the layout that I had planned, simply because our wood line is not optimally set up for an additional military school here. If I wanted to delete all of this and relocate my wood line maybe here or here, I could have done that probably, just about. But it also works if you just build it here, if you're safe enough. Sometimes you have to adjust to the situation. And you still have enough space for 1 military production building later here, and 2 more here. And so you're still fine for a good while. So you can choose to go further onto wood here, or you can now rally to food or gold, depending on what you need. Also start getting all your upgrades now. You have your most important eco upgrades. Specialized pick you should think about as well, since you will have more than 10 villagers on gold now, and you will probably go on stone eventually as well in castle, obviously, to build keeps. So that is the build order. I hope you could take something away from this. And if you have any ideas on how to optimize this further, or any questions, please leave a comment, and otherwise, class dismissed.